Alright, starting this off with a big spoiler warning. This video will spoil both Hatoful Boyfriend and the follow-up game Holiday Star. You might be wondering what kind of spoilers there could possibly be for this seemingly silly bird game, but trust me on this one, there are big spoilers. If you know these spoilers, you're all good. If you don't know and don't mind being spoiled, please note that this video is based on understanding the spoilers and analyzing the game as a whole. It would take way too much time to explain everything, so you could either watch a playthrough I have linked in the description, or try piecing the details together and winging it. Either way, I'm really happy to be talking about this. It's one of my favorite games and I don't see many people talking about it. I haven't seen any analysis of Holiday Star in particular, so I'd figure I'd take things into my own hands and dig my claws into this one. I have a lot to say, so I'll divide it into parts. Part 1. Timeline. Now, whether you've only played the first Hatoful game, or have played both and are a little confused, I'll take a bit to explain the timeline of things. Usually this kind of thing would be a sequel, but Holiday Star is different. Holiday Star does not take place after BBL, the game's true ending, but is an AU of sorts. But since this is a visual novel, AU sorta just means branching path like the other routes are. No wheelchair Shu, no infected Ryota, no dead Hyoko. Good? Good. Now hold on. Before getting to Holiday Star, let's look at BBL a bit for a thematic comparison. Part 2. Original game content. In BBL, each character has something in common for the most part. They have lost someone precious to them and are burdened by lingering feelings about it. Ryota has lost Hyoko, Sakuya has lost Yuya, Shu has lost Ryuji, and Hitori has lost Nageki. Oko-san and Angel are exceptions to this. In a way, I'd say they're more of a driving force, as Oko-san motivates Sakuya at his lowest point, and Angel is one of the main reasons Ryota overcame his state of hopelessness. This makes me feel as if Holiday Star and BBL have different themes overall. Now when I say different, I don't think that either is better than the other. I love them both equally, and the fact that they play out alternate scenarios is very interesting. These characters are so well fleshed out that both of these highlight different parts of them. Anyways, I feel that the difference in themes is that BBL focuses on characters dealing with those that they have lost, and that Holiday Star focuses on the characters individually. Part 3. Picture books. If you're watching this without having seen this game, I'll clarify a bit. After being stuck in a dream world of sorts, the main character, Hyoko, realizes nobody is able to leave unless they all desire to do so. The king doesn't want anyone to leave, and gives everyone picture books in an attempt to persuade them to stay. So, let's look at each one and what it means. I'll be reading each one out and then analyzing it. The Lying Picture Book. Once there was an Oko-san. There is something the Oko-san wanted to find, no matter what, so he ran to the ends of the earth. The Oko-san was very fast. He could run anywhere. He ran everywhere. At the end of the earth, there is a giant hole in the ground. The Oko-san fell into the hole. No one remembers the Oko-san now. Poor Oko-san. Poor Oko-san. This one's the most straightforward, with the hole being the only somewhat vague part. I believe the hole symbolizes Oko-san falling right into the king's trap. The search is what leads Oko-san forward, always progressing to the future. He confuses this with the thing he wants to obtain being what he wants most, that being pudding. Hyoko reminds him of this, and he resolves to escape. The Unclosed Picture Book. Once there was a chrysalis. The chrysalis was all alone. It didn't know how to grow up, so it stayed a chrysalis forever. One day, a butterfly came along. The butterfly said, "Let's be friends. I can show you how to become a beautiful butterfly like me." The lonely chrysalis was happy, because it wasn't alone anymore. But its friend the butterfly disappeared soon after. The lonely chrysalis was alone again. It didn't know where to go anymore. It didn't know what it wanted to do anymore. The lonely chrysalis shrank and hardened. Nothing will ever come out of it now. Poor chrysalis. Poor chrysalis. The chrysalis is Shu, and the kind butterfly is Ryuji. Shu didn't understand kindness, and when Ryuji came along and started showing him how to grow into a kind person, he passed away from illness, and it hurt Shu deeply. He regressed back into a state of detachment. Now, Shu is the one that initiates the BBL route in the first place, through fulfilling the promise. and at the end of Holiday Star we see that as unshakable as he's made out to be, he knocks something over and seems to be changing a little for the better. He lets Miru and Kaku stay in the infirmary, and seems to be thinking of them as something Ryuji left behind for him to take care of. I think that this is in place of the promise. Instead of Shu being caught up in chasing Ryuji's shadow through the vague concept of a promise, he has something physical to do, looking after Miru and Kaku. So no promise equals no BBL, at least that's what I think. The Decorated Picture Book. Once there was a beautiful piano. The piano was decorated with gemstones in all the colors of the rainbow. Oh, how it sparkled and glittered. Everyone told it was beautiful. What a beautiful piano! No one had ever seen such a wonderful piano before. The piano's owner was very pleased and decorated the piano even more. Everyone in all the land praised the piano's beauty. No one from anywhere wanted to hear its voice. But the gemstones were heavy, so heavy, and one day they crushed the piano flat. Poor piano. Poor piano. The gems symbolize Sakuya's status as a labelle, and the piano symbolizes his desire to pursue music, along with his opinions as an individual. As shown in Sakuya's route in the original game, he wants to become a musician, hence the piano in his picture book. The book tells him that he will be crushed by the expectation of his family, and he will be unable to become what he wants most. Sakuya doesn't seem to pick up on the symbolism, however, and wants only to leave. Unknowingly, he resolves to escape. While this could be passed off as pure ignorance, he does end up wanting to pursue music in his route in the original game, so it's implied that even if he understood the symbolism, he would likely want to become a musician regardless. After all, in his own route, he does exactly this, to the point of being disowned by his family. The Black and White Picture Book. Once upon a time, there lived a white dove and a black dove. The white dove loved the sunflower. The black dove loved the sunflower too. What a beautiful sunflower it was. It was as warm and bright as the sun itself. The sunflower would go out and play with the doves all day long. But one day, the sunflower made friends with the star. And after that, the sunflower always went out at night. Without the sunflower, as bright as the sun to light them, the days became dark. The white dove knew how nice the night star was, and became sad, and more sad, and cried. The black dove thought the night star should turn into a shooting star and go disappear somewhere far away. Things would be better then. But in the end, both doves froze in the darkness and died. Poor doves. Poor doves. The two birds in this picture book aren't two separate characters. They're conflicting sides of Ryota. One pities his situation and does nothing. The other is jealous and spiteful, but does nothing. The sunflower is Hiyoko, and the shooting star is Negeki. As a little note, I believe this mirrors the king in a sense. The person they want to be with most seeks out someone else, and they're torn between spite and self-pity. Too scared of the future, Ryota is very invested in the bond he has with Hiyoko. He says he had felt like he and Hiyoko were one. This is just like how the king had assembled everyone into one being. The choices that differentiate between a good and bad end here speak measures. If you question Ryota's knowledge of Hiyoko, he doubles down and claims to know Hiyoko very well, causing the king to rope him into assimilating into one being. However, if you question what he's afraid of, he admits his fear of knowing less and less about Hiyoko. He fears that they're drifting apart and what'll happen in the future. In his picture book, the two sides of him end up dead due to their stagnation. Despite their strong feelings, they don't move forward. This is what would happen if the bad end were to occur. He assimilates with the king and dies in that sense. The King's Picture Book. Once there was a poor little quail. One day, the quail was tricked by a bad bird and killed. The quail was put onto the train through the night sky along with all the other birds who had died. Where is the train going? There must be a terrible place at the end of the line. The quail was so scared and so afraid it thought its little heart would burst. But the train stopped for a little while. Apparently even galactic trains have to wait for signals. The quail was too scared to stay on the train, so it jumped off. There is a dark, dark room there. There is nothing in it but a chair and a little candle. There is no one else there. The quail sat on the chair and cried. Why did this happen? It was betrayed by its friend and forced onto a strange train. What would happen next? The quail thought and made a station. Maybe if there's a station, someone will come by to play. The quail made a station and lit the candle and waited. Time passed, birds came. The dark room became a beautiful kingdom. The candle became a grand lighthouse. The chair became a royal throne, and the quail became the king. Those who come to the kingdom become one with the king. The king is all, and all are the king. No one is hurt, and no one has any sad thoughts. The birds of the holiday star lived happily, happily ever after. How nice, how very nice. The king's picture book is autobiographical. He grieves over having been tricked into death and put onto a scary train, which he ran off of. All he had was a small candle, but over time had built a kingdom for other lost souls. Instead of boarding the train as they should have, they wander to the kingdom and become assimilated with the king. The king had never had a stable connection with others, and the first one he got turned out to be a lie, resulting in his death. It's a tragic story. He assimilates everyone who comes into the kingdom into one being. Everyone is the king. No one can disagree because the king is one being. No one can be alone because everyone is the king. He's become a paradox in order to try coping with his conflicting emotions. He wants everyone to get along, but takes his anger out on Hitori. He wants to get along with others, but doesn't let anyone know his true intentions. He wants friends, but absorbs them into himself, stripping them of their individuality. The king gives those trapped in this kingdom picture books designed to show them the worst parts of themselves, and the most pessimistic view of the real world if they were to try leaving. He idealizes the kingdom because it is the one thing he has ever been in complete control of. He's always felt like a mere passenger in his own life, and then was manipulated into having that life taken from him. Even on the train, he sits and trembles on it in fear. He fled from life and fled from the train. He wanted something else. So the king built a kingdom. He says that everyone can be happy there, but by turning all that wonder into the kingdom into himself, it's a selfish motivation. He appeals to their fear of what may happen, and to the pain that they each carry. And he starts to falter when that very structure that the kingdom had been created upon starts being chipped away at. Nageki and Hiyoko tell him his paradoxical desires have left him as alone as he was before, and Yuya refuses to have his personal problems taken away by a stranger, later leading Ryota to coming to that same conclusion. Picture book. You lied to me. This one is much different from the others. No symbolism, no trickery, just pure spite. Hitori sits alone atop a mountain, searching for his name. He has an identity crisis, as he had stolen the original Kazuaki's identity. He's stuck in a state of confusion. When encountering Yuya, he seems to not exactly know what wrongdoing the king says he had done, and mistakes Yuya for Shu, implying he is confused enough to not properly identify the one he's held a grudge against for years. He is in a very confused and unsteady state of mind. With this said, he doesn't have much of an understanding of the situation at hand. His only purpose for moving forward is his grudge against Shu. He's tied to the past via the king and is unable to even make sense of the present because he had eaten his own eyes. It's all blurry and disorienting, and he tries to sleep it all off in the room the king put him in. Yuya insists he follow him, however, and Hitori is very passive towards the final confrontation. He almost gets taken by the final remnants of the king's power, but Nageki takes his wing and pulls him out of it. Just as in BBL, he is easily swept into the darkest parts of his mind and has to be reminded of the warmth Nageki and him once had together. He is a victim of unfortunate circumstance, but turns into an aggressor. He is tormented by an illusion of Nageki, reflecting his own grief and spite over Nageki's death. This leads him to take someone else's life as a mean to take Shu's life. His loss makes him descend into a state of delusion and rage, so the best way for him to come back to reality is the reminder that Nageki holds no spite towards him, and that he wants things to be peaceful. Part 4. Nageki, the King, the scorpion, and lanterns. Now, here we have a bit of a question. What did Nageki do right that the king did wrong? Nageki messed with the other people's personalities around him. He went through tragedy, but he didn't let that justify wrongdoings. Hitori and the king both went through tragedy, but made the mistake of trying to seek out revenge or avoiding what they needed to do. While Hitori doesn't care what happens to him and acts on what he believes Nageki would have wanted, the king is self-serving, going to great lengths to avoid fear and being alone. Both, however, carry potential to cause major grief in their respective stories. Nageki, however, knows how painful what he has gone through feels and doesn't want to cause that for others. Now, let's look at a piece of media that Holiday Star references, Night on the Galactic Railroad. There are small details like the planisphere being a map, but there's also things like the train taking those who ride it on a starry journey across the skies. In Galactic Railroad, it takes them to heaven, but in Hatoful, it's reincarnation. Also, the majority of Night on the Galactic Railroad focuses on the train and its passengers, whereas the king, and later the others, hop off of the train and reside in a town. It leaves the influence of Galactic Railroad as an influence, not a one-for-one recreation or parody. I'd say the biggest reference to Night on the Galactic Railroad would be the scene with the lighthouse with Nageki and the king. Nageki starts quoting a story from Night on the Galactic Railroad verbatim. In Night on the Galactic Railroad, there is a story told about a scorpion who kills and eats other bugs, and then bursts into flames, hoping to use its body for good. This is just like Nageki, and he realizes that similarity. The fact that the scorpion had eaten other bugs as a means to continue to live is how Nageki had killed humans with the Charon virus, and by doing so was given treatment in the medical facility, allowing him to live. And then he bursts into flames in the medical facility, and bursts into flames again in Holiday Star in order to save everyone. He notes that the king's favorite book when he was alive was the same as his own, that being Night on the Galactic Railroad. The lantern emitted a light like the scorpion, drawing others towards the town. Then when Nageki bursts into flames, he too emits a strong light, just like the scorpion. Despite the scorpion story ending in it perishing and not coming back to life, Nageki is a ghost, and when he tries to save everyone by bursting in the flames, he's taken by Hyoko and the others back to safety. It's not his time yet, as he does not have all of his memories of life. Another little thing that I'd like to note does not have to do with Night on the Galactic Railroad, but makes a clever nod to a Japanese word, this being the word somato. The word somato can be used for a lantern, but can also be used for illusions or light flashing before your eyes before death. It fits the fact that the lighthouse projects this illusionary world before death, aka boarding the train. Adding little references like this into the story makes it very fun to dig into analytically, and makes it that much more deep with meaning. Part 5. Conclusion. So what conclusion have we come to? Well, we have some lessons to learn from what has happened in Holiday Star. 1. The best course of action is moving towards an uncertain future without resenting or pitying the past. Yuya explains this to Ryota when he worries about what might happen in the future. 2. Treating yourself as a victim can lead to stagnation. This is shown through Ryota's bad end and the king as a character. 3. Relationships need to be symbiotic. Dumping all of your problems onto one person without the same happening in reverse will end up hurting both parties. The original Kazuaki dumped all of his problems onto Hitori to the point that neither of them turned out well, even when reuniting on the Holiday Star. Yuya explicitly calls this out, saying how he doesn't know a thing about the king, that his problems are his own to bear, that he won't hand them over to be magically swept away. 4. Openness and friendship are virtues and go hand in hand. Talk with others, connect with them, let them vent to you, and vent to them. There are so many people waiting to be met out in the world. Staying alone and assuming others won't want you around without talking to them will only end up hurting you. Through meeting the eccentric Oko-san, the strong-willed Sakuya, the brave Yuya, the closed-off Shu, the festive Miru and Kaku, the scared yet friendly Ryota, the sleepy Hitori, the cowardly king, Nageki, Hyoko, and by association, you, are invited to branch out, to make friends, and to look forward to each new day. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Another question you might have is, am I trying to revive the Hatoful fandom, which was kinda small in the first place with this video? The answer is yes. It's a resounding yes. Please talk more about Hatoful. Please, I'm begging you.